Santa Croce in Jerusalem, one of the seven basilicas, the major basilicas that pilgrims try to visit on a complete pilgrimage of the Eternal City. There we have big traces of the Passion and of the Holy Land, and originally big chunks of the Holy Land itself. They had brought earth. St. Helena, mother of Constantine, had wanted a big chunk of Jerusalem in Rome, and therefore it was called, and is still called, in Jerusalem. And the liturgy on this day, way back, already in the time of Gregory the Great, was celebrated there on this fourth Sunday, Mid-Lent, hence the rose colour, letare. But there is also an echo of the formation of the catechumens, and here we have the gradual unveiling of the teaching on the presence. You may know that in the very early time, the fullness of the revelation was not given actually until the very night itself. There was an aura of mystery, the arcanum it's called. And that was also partly a protective means, because they didn't want too much known outside the safe quarters of Christianity itself, lest they be accused of all kinds of things like cannibalism. So the fullness of revelation happened in the fantastic vigil of Easter. Remember that we're coming from something pretty antiquated and pretty solemn on Holy Night, now only halfway between Lent away. Now, celebrate it well, by the way, if you possibly can. It's not enough to have a quickie on that night. Think of the centuries behind you. But here we have, therefore, some element of the Eucharistic mystery coming forth. Now, this multiplication of bread, of food, of clothes, of money has happened and still happens over the Christian centuries. I have a friend. It happened in her hand more than once when she was feeding the poor in Spanish Harlem. She tested, yes, it was happening in her hands. The same quantity was there until the last poor person had been fed. The Lord's arm is not shortened, therefore, and I have many testimonies from when I was involved with the charismatic renewal in France. Things would go on, big things, huge things, massive things. The Lord in charge of creation. Because they took him seriously, he took them seriously. And it will happen also with us. And it will happen specifically if we take the Lord's saints seriously. St. Joseph. It will be his feast. It's transferred for tomorrow because of the importance of this day. But also others. Therese of Lisieux, for instance. And I have here this testimony which I happened to pick up, which actually moved me, which might move you as well, just to show how much power we have in the family of God if we took it seriously, if we, as it were, insisted seriously, if our prayer came from our heart. Listen to this, amongst thousands of testimonies. It is told that the convent of Gallipoli had been suffering for 3 years from an insufficient supply of money with which to pay their debts. Now that's in Italy. Not enough food. At times, the sisters would go to the chapel in place of going to the refectory. There was nothing to eat. But the life of, now at that time, the recently deceased, we're going back a long time now, about a century ago or more, had been read in the refectory, one of their own, therefore, but in France. Now, the prioress decided to make a special appeal for 3 days to the Trinity through the intercession of the little flower of Jesus. By the way, at the same time, this phenomenon of a saint was becoming known in the trenches in France. And there are quite a few testimonies coming through. They would like to have a picture of this saint with the holy face, and she would protect them. Bullets would go round them and that kind of thing. So, the Triduum ended on the 16th of January 1910. On that day, Sœur Thérèse kept her promise of doing good upon earth. It's written in the dome of the big basilica in Lisieux, built on the hill. that she was going to pass her heaven doing good on earth. Remember that promise. She keeps it. The astounding facts of this miracle are given in letters written by Mother Mary Carmela to Mother Agnes of Jesus. Now, I feel a certain fellow feeling with this family because I was at La Trappe, and there, close to us, was Lisieux, and I knew, as one can know in a Trappist monastery, when I was 20, I was next to Frère Marie Bernard, who was in his 80s or 90s by then, and he was spiritual father to this Mother Agnes. It's possible in time. She lived much longer than her sister. But the mother asked that all the correspondence be burnt, so nothing has been preserved. So, the mother received this letter from Italy. It's dated the 25th of February and reads as follows. Dear Reverend Mother, I send you the account of the miracle wrought on our behalf. But a long document signed by the whole community, by a commission of priests and by the bishop himself, has been forwarded to Rome. On the night of the 16th of January 1910, I was in great suffering and was also worried about certain grave difficulties. 3 o'clock had struck, and almost worn out, I raised myself somewhat in the bed in order to breathe more easily. Then I fell asleep. Now, dreams, as you know from the life of St. Joseph, are a grey area where things can happen, even actually to us. Dreams can, not always, but they can be means of communication, a premonition, or whatever it might be. But be careful, don't go over the top on that one. But be aware that sometimes the Lord can make use of a dream. So, in this apparent dream, I felt a hand touch me, draw the bedclothes from about my face, and cover me up tenderly. I thought one of the sisters had come in to perform this act of charity. Without opening her eyes, Mother Mary Carmela greatly protested that the movement of air might be harmful, since she was then covered in perspiration. But a sweet voice she had never heard before replied, "No, it is a good act that I am doing. Listen. The good God," that's very French, bon Dieu, "makes use of the inhabitants of heaven, as well as those of earth, in order to assist his servants. Here are 500 francs, with which you will pay the debt of your community." Taking them from her hand, I answered that the debt amounted to only 300 francs. "Well," she replied, "the rest will be over and above. But as you may not keep this money in your cell, come with me." Since the night was bitterly cold and she was bathed in perspiration, Mother Mary Carmela wondered how she could follow the apparition. She continues, "The heavenly apparition, however, divined my thoughts, adding with a smile, 'Bilocation will help us.' Suddenly, I found myself outside my cell, in the company of a young Carmelite nun, whose veil and robes shone with the brightness from paradise that served to light up our way. She led me downstairs to the turn room. That's the place we had also in France. It goes round so you're actually in contact with the lay people outside. And made me open a wooden box wherein was enclosed the bill which had to be paid. There she deposited the 500 francs. I looked at her lovingly and threw myself at her feet, crying out, "Oh, my Holy Mother!" But she raised me up and, caressing me affectionately, replied, "No, I am not our Holy Mother, Saint Teresa of Jesus, I am the servant of God, Sœur Thérèse of Lisieux. Today, in heaven and on earth, we keep the feast of the holy name of Jesus. Then the angelic sister, putting a hand on my veil as if to adjust it, gave me a sisterly embrace and slowly withdrew. Wait, I called her. You might mistake your way. No. My way is sure, and I am not mistaken in following it. Now that actually has a double meaning, a little way. The next morning, despite her exhaustion, Mother Mary Carmela went to the choir and received Holy Communion. The two sacristans, however, recognized her weakened condition and insisted on calling for the doctor. To prevent this, Mother Carmela told them that she was deeply moved by the impression of a dream, and in all simplicity told them the story. Now, the letter goes on. Both of them urged me to examine the box. Finally, as they insisted, I did as they desired. I went to the parlour, opened the box, and there I found in reality the miraculous sum of 500 francs. It doesn't stop there, but I'm going to stop there because it goes on. It's rather like a program that I had when I was a child. I used to love watching. It was Huey Green, double your money and try to get rich. Double your money without any hitch. And it got bigger and bigger and bigger, because what happened was the bishop got involved, and he was trying to pay back. He was making an offering to Therese, and it was always doubling. So there's almost a twinkle in the eye of the saint from the beyond, reminding us that heaven is not done by our generosity. St. Joseph is the same, and that very mother, of which there's a reference here, Mother Jesus, or rather Teresa of Jesus herself, had a huge devotion to Saint Jose and maintained that nothing at all that she asked for his intercession, especially on his feast day, was ever refused. And the reason for it is that for the child Jesus, the face of Joseph is that of Daddy, and he can't refuse Daddy. There's so much love between them. Remember that in these sacred hours of the 19th of March, extended to tomorrow because of the feast. I want to make a jump. In the first reading, we have this reference to slavery. I remember hearing that one time Father Yozo was holding forth in his mode in the church near Medjugorje, where you would welcome pilgrims. And Nancy would be doing the interpretation. At a certain point, brr, brr. So he stopped in mid-course. Answer it, slave, or words to that effect. In other words, she couldn't put it off. And it could be our case as well. Perhaps not in church, although that happens as well, but at home, very few are capable of living with that machine off. It just can't be done. Therefore, they are enslaved. That commands their day. Talk to them, it'll go off, and they'll answer that before you. It interrupts even prayer if you've got it on while in prayer. It interrupts a profound reading and meditation. Your thoughts are exploded and given to someone else. You are divided. Now, it's actually something which one doesn't notice immediately, but if one has been involved with the contemplative life for years and then comes out of it and sees what's gone on in the world, I mean, compared with the utter unbroken silence of nothing artificial at all, with all this stuff, one sees, wow, the world has changed. People themselves are changed by something bigger than themselves. They are slaves. And moreover, holy souls are in holy enslavement to holy things that they can't switch off from. I mean, all this stuff, having to know what such say, and all that goes with it, unable to say no to the solicitation that comes up in the margin from this next YouTube to see. So they start for one research, which is a good thing, and 3 hours later they're still on the box, and the evening has gone. Slaves. So it's worth looking into it, my friends, on this Mid-Lent. Lent is a test, a time for readjusting the use of time, dust unto dust, ashes unto ashes. I was next to a tomb of a dear friend yesterday. She just died 2 years ago at 39, well prepared. It's not always the case in Dulic Cemetery. I want to conclude. It was this week the Feast of St. Patrick. I pick up on the grapevine that those who have lived over this last generation in Ireland have seen an evolution. Whereas, only a few years ago, all on St. Patrick's Day would first have been to Mass. Now, massively, men especially, are going to the main event of the day, and now, not just in the afternoon, but in key times of the morning as well, not having gone to church first. This has become, yes, a religion. The ball has become a religion. It is worshipped. The future of the world depends on which way it bounces, this way or that way. But it's only a game. Even a professional sportsman is playing a game. And he doesn't realize that he's been kicked around by the enemy of the soul itself, Satan, who will do anything to make sure that he doesn't pray. Slavery. Subtle, subtle slavery. I finished, my friends. I'll bring you to 2 towers. I just happened yesterday to go in the area of Tesco Extra in Drogheda, on a fairly high place compared to the rest of Drogheda, and for that reason, just outside there is a gem of contemporary architecture. Not exactly Romanesque, more Gothic, because it points toward heaven. Made of the best aluminium, pointing straight upward, covered in cathodes and diodes, and parabolics of a greater interest than those of my grandmother's best china. It goes straight up, erected by, no doubt, Vodafone or their brethren, and is a means of giving great service to all in the area. A gem which all will admire for many generations, looking back to the 23rd century and its glories of architecture, what Prince Charles would call a magnificent carbuncle. And a few minutes later, I was singing Vespers at the feet of St. Patrick on Slane. It was by then dusk, and the green light was on the old monastery. The tower, the belfry is still standing, a different tower, where would emanate not bleeps and messages, but the sound of the bell calling brethren safely home. Back to base. Back to base, back to base. Which of the two do we want? The bleep or the quiet call to prayer? Think on these things, my friends, in Mid-Lent, for time is passing, and we are passing with it, dust unto dust, and ashes unto ashes.
Hostia pro nobis, sub Pontio Pilato, sapus sepultus est. Ed ascendit in celum, sed ex sanctes terram Patris. Et in Spiritus Sancto Dominum et vivificantem, qui et Patre Filioque pro